Now let's see replica in action. But before we do that, I want us to first create our app and deploy it into our Kubernetes cluster. So the application will containerize the simple login API and that will push to Docker Hub. I want us to deploy it first, creating a manifest file with pod and service. Then afterwards, we'll see the concept of replica in the same video. So the first thing is I've deleted everything on my Minikube cluster. So everything is clean. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call it 02 tutorial. I'm going to call it application this time, right? And you can follow along from this repo, right, inside this place. We're going to start with pod, right? We're going to start with pod. This is it, yeah, store application. We're going to start with pod. So I'm going to create an application. So let's first create this folder, pods, and we are going to create 00 app. We're going to go to pods.yaml. So this is the manifest file that we're going to create for deploying our containerized application, right? So first thing we do, you already know API version is v1, and the kind is pod, and the metadata, which contains the information about the pod, is going to be name is my app, and the labels, which is where service is going to know which pod to attach itself to. We say app. We're going to say my app, right? And after this, we are going to spec, which is the specification of the container we're going to run. I'm going to come here. I'm going to say containers. And here I'm going to specify the name of that container. And the name of our container is simple login API. Simple login API. And we're going to say which image. And our image is already on our Docker Hub. And if we come here, this is our image right here. So TechWithAdeDayo, simple login API, and the version. We're going to choose version v1. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, later, I'll call you. TechWithAdeDayo. I'm going to say TechWithAdeDayo. That's the name of my username. Then the name of the repo, login API. And the version that we're going to use is v1, right? This is our image right here. So I'm going to say the port that it's listening to. If you remember, our image is listening on port 5000, container port, say 5000. That's what it's listening on. And then we are going to specify the environment variables. Remember, we have JWT secret. And we have our Mongo URI, even though we bundled our Mongo URI inside our code. So when we bundled it, we did everything and inside the Docker file. But in real life scenario, you won't do that, right? Your Mongo URI will be in your environment variable. So I'll show you how to set that here. And again, it's not going to be open. We are going to see the concept of another object called secret and ConfigMaps later on in the lecture. But for now, we'll do it this way. So let's say we want to pass environment. We want to pass the JWT secret that we have as environment variable. Don't forget that when we're doing our application on local. And then the value of that, let's have it inside this place, is your _super underscore secret underscore key. And then let's just add our Mongo URI. It won't affect whether we bundled it. Don't worry about it. Just follow this Mongo URI. And once we do this, we want to enter the value of it, right? And the value is MongoDB. And we are going to be accessing the one on our local host. Don't forget docker.internet. And through which port? 27017. And this is just this thing, right? This is our value right here. This is our value. And right there and there, I think we are done with our port. And now we're going to specify our service. Now I did these 3 hyphens. What I want you to know is in Kubernetes, we can create multiple manifest files inside a single YAML file, right? So all we need to do is, if we want to create another object, all we need to do is specify these 3 hyphens, and Kubernetes, we understand that what we are doing is this one ends right here and another begins right here. So we are going to say API version. So if you remember, we wrote our service file in another place last time, but this time I just want to show you another way to do it. We can write it there. So I'm going to say kind is service, and we need to put the information, and the information right here is, we're going to give the name of the service, and I'm going to say my app service. And it's a very good thing to always make sure that whatever your service is going to attach itself to, right, the name is always like almost the same thing. So this is my app service and this is my app. So anybody that is working with you, once they go inside your Kubernetes cluster, they will know that this guy here is tracking this pod, right? So let's go, and we're going to write the specification of this service. And what do we need first? We need our selector. It's selector, and the selector is going to be the same as this app, because my app, right? So app, my app. Once this selector finds this label, it's going to automatically attach itself to it, right? And after then, we need to specify the ports that our service is going to listen on, right? And I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to say protocol, which we'll explain down the line. If you are already familiar with networking, you understand this. So TCP, and I'm going to say the port that our service is going to, that we're going to be able to access our service is port 80. And I'm going to say the target port is 5000. Don't worry. So we are getting, this is the port we are targeting, but we are exposing it on 80 on our service. We've done this before. And now, if you remember, we talked about 4 types of services. We said cluster IP, we said node port, we said load balancer, and we said external name. Cluster IP, you can access our pods from inside the Kubernetes cluster. You cannot access it outside. And node port allows us to be able to access it outside. So now I'm going to say cluster IP, which is always the default, even if we don't write it here. Whenever you don't specify anything, assuming I just say this and I just create this pod and service, it's just going to automatically choose cluster IP, right? So I just want you to know that. So let me say type cluster IP, right? And let's check everything we've done. Keep in mind this thing, if there's any error, it will not run, right? So we have this, DB host, is my app service, selector, the kind service, spot, great. So let's go and apply this. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to go into my documents, and new folder, which is where I've kept my manifest files. It's a Kubernetes tutorial. I'm going to say 02. I'm going to go inside pods. And if I do ls, this is where this thing is. And I'm going to just to see, okay, yeah, everything is good. And I'm going to say kubectl apply -f. I'm going to say 00 apport. And what this will do is it's going to create our pod and service at the same time, right? Because they're in the same manifest file. So let's do this. And see, pod my app created and service my app created. So if we say kubectl get all, and we have pod my app running, and we also have service and the IP running. But of course, I will be able to, if we look at the log, kubectl log -f, my app, we should be able to connect. And if you look at it, right, this is good. Everything is running. MongoDB is connected because we use that Mongo URI. Don't forget. That's why we are able to connect to it. But there's no way for us to be able to access our application. We cannot use this. If we say this and just go to this place and say this, we won't be able to access our application. And even if we go to Postman, there is no way we would be able to access our application. So this is where node port comes in handy. This is because it allows you to be able to access your application outside the cluster, right? It allows you to access your application outside the cluster. So it will just roll instead of us to cannot get hash. So what do we do in this case? What we do is I'm just going to come here. Let me allow this. Allow access. Let me go and write new manifest file. Right, even though we can see now that our application is running, but there's no way for us to be able to use Postman to register or do anything, right? Let me say this. If I come to this place, where is our? This is inside. This is cluster IP. We can't use it, right? And so, what do we do to solve this issue? What we can do to solve this issue is we can have a node port, right? And we can have a node port type instead, and we'll specify the node port. And mostly the node port is always very high. It's always, the range is always between 30,000 and 32767, right? That's the range. So what do we need to do? So let's do something. Let's just create another file. Call this 00. And say app. I'm going to say this is app. I'm going to say pod and node.yml, right? And what we're going to do now is let's just copy and paste this whole thing and paste it here, right? And we are just going to say something. We are going to say, instead of this, we're going to say node port, and I'm going to choose a node port of 3080. So our application is going to be able, right, to use this node port. So I'm going to say type is going to be node port. So this is the port we are giving. So for instance, now this is our target port, and our application is going to be up with service here. But to access it outside the Minikube cluster, we are going to use this port, and we are going to dynamically generate an IP through service. Right, so I'm going to show you how we can do this through our Minikube cluster. So just follow me. I'm going to say Ctrl S, and what we are going to first do here now is to not to have any confusion. Let's first delete our pod. I'm going to say delete pod. What's the name? My app, and I'm going to delete the service as well. Let's say delete service. Let me write it in full this time. We say app, my app service. And it's gone. And I'm going to say kubectl get all. Great, and nothing is here. Then clear my screen, and I'm going to say, so let's first check. This thing can be funny sometimes. And yeah, we have S and all that. Okay. So I'm going to say, and the only thing we changed this to type node port, this, and I'm going to say kubectl apply -f. And what's the name of this? To not confuse, let's change this to 01. Right? Let's change this to 01. And I'm going to say 01. And I'm going to steal this. And everything is created. And I'm going to say kubectl get all. And great. If you see this now, this is our app running. And this is also our service. And if you see this now, it's telling us, even though we are listening to 80 inside the cluster, now we can access it out from 3080 on our local host, right? We can do this two ways. You can say Minikube IP, and you just access it through this Minikube IP and this 3080 port, right? And there's another way which works mostly for me. I don't know why sometimes this doesn't work. And is we are just going to say Minikube service. And what's the name of our service? Our service is my app service. And we say --URL. And this will give us an interface. It will port and it will give us a URL where we can access our application. If I say enter, and it's telling us now that our application is available here. So in case you go through your Minikube here and go to 3080 and it did not work, it happens like that. If it's you are using cloud services or you use your public IP and to work on the spot. But for Minikube, just do this, my app service. And if we copy this and go here, and if we paste it here, you see cannot get this. Once you get this, know your app is up. So if I go to my Postman, and I'm just going to register someone first, and I'm going to use that endpoint instead of localhost now. I'm going to use this endpoint. And it's going to be 127.0.0.1. And I'm going to register. I'm going to change the email now. And I'm going to give it, this is app. I'm going to say this is app. I'm going to leave the password the same way. And I'm going to send this. And we should get 201. And we got 201 created, right? And if we go inside here and check our users, and we should have this is app@gmail.com, right? And we can test this as well. Now come here and copy this once more, and come here and do this, right? And what's this thing that we use to register right here? This is app. I'm going to copy this. Go to login and paste it here. And it should return a JWT token to us. Send. So this is correct. So that means now our application can be accessed outside our Minikube cluster. And again, we've been able to spin it up. Everything is working very well. So now let's go and understand replica and the importance of replica. So I'm going to open my whiteboard. So let's see Replicaset. Which is another object in Kubernetes. So one thing I want you to know is that in most cases, you won't be writing Replicaset manifest file. In fact, what you'll be doing mostly, like I explained before this, you'll be using deployment to manage your Replicaset. But it's still a very important thing to understand Replicaset in its essence. So what do I mean by this? We already know that ports, IPs are actually unreliable. That's a fact. We've talked about it 1,000 times, right? But at the same time, we need something that can auto-scale ports, right, to meet the service of users, right? So that's the first thing. Then we have something else which it does, which is auto-healing. And what this means is Replicaset makes sure that your actual state equals to your desired state. If you want 2 pods to be up, make sure there is 2 pods are up, right? And the Replicaset have one-to-one relationship with a pod, right? Let's say this is RS, it's managing a pod. If you want to create another version of this pod, let's say for instance, you want to change from version 1 to version 2, which is called rolling update, Replicaset cannot do it. But to really understand Replicaset, let's just look at a very simple example by doing this file manifest file. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to create. Let's just create let's create a folder inside this place. And we are going to call it Replicaset. And we are going to write a manifest file. I'm going to call it 00 app Replicaset dot YAML. What I'm going to do is from this my 01 app, I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste this right here, right? And I'm going to name this, just going to change a few things there. I'm going to change the name to my app, Replicaset. And we have a few things to change because for the Replicaset to know what is speaking as well, it needs something. So on this metadata, we need to add, we have labels here. Here, now what we want to create is Replicaset, not pod. So we have Replicaset. It should be capital Replicaset. And right here, we already have name, my app. Let's remove these labels. We are still going to need it. And we are going to put it under spec, under specification. And we are going to have something called replicas. Let's just say 2 replicas. I make sure we have 2 of the pods. So let me say this, and I'm going to say selector. Now this right here is not service 1, is for Replicaset. So I'm going to say match labels. Match labels. I'm going to say app is my app, right? And then we are going to create another template. Now this is where our service is going to be. I'm going to say template. This is where our service is going to know its own labels. I'm going to explain it one after the other. I'm going to say metadata, and I'm going to say, now I'm going to say labels. I'm going to say, come here, say app, my app, and I'm going to explain all of this one after the other. So now let's go to this selector and see whatever we need to change here. We need to change selector, my app, the course, type, everything is good here. And the only thing we are changing here. So great. The kind of object we want to create is Replicaset. And the name we want to give it, which is the information about the replica set itself, right? Please take note of this. Is this. Now that we are now writing specifications, because this is for replica set, we need to put this under specification, right? So the replicas that we need is 2. It's going to make sure that we have 2 pods running. And the selector, this selector is very important to replica set. It's going to match my app, my app label. Match labels my app. So it's going to attach itself to this one as well. Once I have this, my app, this labels my app, it's going to attach itself to it. And like I said, it has a one-to-one relationship. If we want to create version 2 of this, we have to create another replica set to manage this version 2. That's one of the downsides of replica set, right? And imagine we want to just change things on the fly. We want to probably want to deploy new version of our application and all these things. So Replicaset is unable to do it, right? So let's look at something in Kubernetes, and I'm going to say this. One thing I want you to understand is the higher you go. So first, you start with pod. And this is another higher object, which is service. Remember that pod have ephemeral IPs, right? But in service now, you have stable IPs, which are solved the issue, right? But pod cannot auto-scale itself, and it cannot auto-heal itself. If you delete a pod, it's gone, right? Same thing in service. If you delete a pod, it will also go, it will remain only the service. Now we have Replicaset. Now we solve the issue of deleting pods. If you delete any pod here, if the Replicaset has settings to 2 pods, if you delete it, Replicaset will make sure that it comes back up to that 2 pod. That's what if you look at it, that's the difference. And we'll see the last one, which goes up again, which is deployment, which handles almost everything. So in most cases, you will not be deploying your application as a pod. No. You will not deploy it as a replica. No. You deploy it as a deployment. And of course, your service is going to be the one exposing your deployment. Expose. You need the service, right? So now let's go back to our VS Code and let's see if everything is right. We said our selector match labels must match this label, right? We see it. That's where it will know the particular pod to attach itself to and to make it this thing, right? So let's say Control S, and I'm going to do this, and we're going to go to our Git bash and Control C this one. I'm going to clear this, and first thing I'm going to see is kubectl get all, and let's delete our that was there before. Kubectl delete my app, and it's going to be pod my app, and I'm going to delete the service as well. Delete service. my app service, and we are going to create it now through Replicaset. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to go back one time and go now to Replicaset, and we have ls and we have this. So if we've written everything the right way, right? This is okay. No, it's this. It's this one. We've written everything the right way, right? We say we need 2 replicas. It's a match label. It's a template metadata, right? If we've done everything right now, if we say kubectl apply -f 00 replica set, where everything goes well, and we have error, and it says, and I stopped the video to make a few changes to this manifest file, right? And the change is not that much, it's just about spacing, and after then I was able to create. So these are just the things which I still did. Replicas, which I've explained, the name, the kind is Replicaset, apps is v1, right? So if you have any issues, you can just go straight here and just copy and paste it, and you should be good to go. Great. So now I've created it, and if we say kubectl get rs, that's how we get Replicaset, and it's showing us that we have my app Replicaset, and if you look at it, we have 2 desired and what's run is 2 current, right? And we can say kubectl get rs -o wide, and if we see it now, it's telling us the name is my applica 2, and the containers simple API login, which is the name, and the image is this, and the selector is app equals my app. So let's do something. So if we say kube get ports, we'll find 2 replica sets, right? Now if I delete one of this port, let me just delete this one and see what happens. If I say kubectl delete pod, and I say, and that is deleted. But if we go back to say get pods, you see another one was created 5 seconds ago. 5 seconds ago. So if you see this, they were the same age, but I deleted one. And when I said get pods, you see that another one was created again. That is the beauty of Replicaset. So let's say something. Let's just change this to version 2. You see the downside of Replicaset. And if I just say, right, this is where deployment trumps it. If I say kubectl apply -f, if it's deployment, it will work straight. I say 00, and I'll say this. And it's going to tell me that what it is configured, service is unchanged. And if I say kubectl get pods, right, and there's no way for us to, let me just say kubectl now get rs-o wide. Even though you are saying version 2 here, but if we go to our application and test it out, you see that it's not version 2, right? And to see that, let's come here. You know, this is our this is our version 1, and in version 2 I've configured in such a way that if you register user, you see user registered, but you first see version 2 user registered. That's the difference. So to do that, let's just say Minikube service, and what's in my service is my app service and --URL. And once we do this, it will give us where we can access it. Remember, we are still using Node port, It has created new endpoint for us, and this one is 59181. So I'm going to change this to 59. No, let's change this to 59181, and let's check it. 59181. Great. And now if I say this is app 2, I'm going to say app 2. Let me just say this is app 2. No. 2. Oh yeah. So now this is app2@gmail.com, and I'm going to send this to register. And if you look at it, it did not change anything. It's still the same thing, even though it shows V2 here, but it's still the same application. But in deployment, we see that when we change this to version 2 and we create that, it automatically changes. So it has a one-to-one relationship. If we want this to monitor version 2, what we need to do is create another replica set to do that. So if I say this is V1, right, and let's create another replica set, which say 01 app replicaset.yml. And if I copy and paste this, I'll change this to V2, right? And I'm going to use another service. I'm going to say my app service. I'm going to say this V2, so that way we know this thing. And we are going to use, where's the label? Okay, yeah, the label, should we use, let's just use label, match label, let's say V2, and we'll say V2. This is the only way we'll be able to do that. Now come here and we'll say V2. So that way our new service will be able to attach itself to this label, while our replica set we map to this particular port 2, and it's going to be version 2, right? So let's do this. And now if we do this, let's just say Ctrl C, and I will say kubectl apply -f, and I'm going to say 01 replica set. And we have an error. Replicaset error when matching is invalid aspect, invalid v1 label selector. I have v2 match labels. Okay, let's just do 2. We're going to do 2. Right here, and this is version 2, and I'm going to say 2, and I have my app service v2, and we are going to do that again, and we have another problem again. Invalid port. Oh, all right. The issue is we are using the same port, so let's change the port this time to 30,090. That's the issue, right? Invalid error is the port issue, right? This one was not port issue, but this one is port issue. So let's do this, and it's telling us that spec is invalid. These are all the issues that we are going to be getting. So wherever is invalid, spec selector valid. So it's telling you now that you cannot use this same app replica set. You have to create a new one to manage it. So how do we fix this one? So let me go back. All right, so let's go back to here, and we're going to change the name to my name app replica set 2, and this time it's going to work. Now if we do it again, and the replica set has been created. Look at all the issues we faced on the replica set. If it was deployment, we could have just changed just a single line to fix this, and it would have been solved. So with that being said, now let's say Minikube right? Service. Let's check our service first. kubectl get svc. We have two services working, and we say Minikube, right? Say service my app service v2 dash URL. And once we do this, it's going to give us another one, and this one is 59295. Let's go right to our Postman. I'm going to say this is 59295. That's what it gave us. And now if we send this, we should have a message that this is version 2, right? Because this Replicaset is going to manage this, only this one. So let's try this, and if I say send, and first we have 400 bad requests. So let's see if we did this thing, 59295, 59295. Again, user already exists. So I'll say 5, right? And I'm going to send this. And if you see it right here, message version 2 user registered, right? So it means we are using our version 2 of our container, which is this. So this shows you that this, my app replica set, only manages this v1, this version 1, while this one manages version 2. We don't want that in real life scenario. That's why we need a higher object that can do this pretty much better. So the next one we are going to see now is going to be deployment.